Mixed martial artist, this one is for you. When I went out last time, I went out clubbing, as you know, me and you talk, and it was a private joke that me and you had that I'll kind of bring out, but you were saying when I go clubbing I should do something referencing to Nick Diaz. I don't have the video, but I will tell you that I actually did something Nick Diaz like. No, I didn't come up shooting up joints. What happened was I went out clubbing, and for some reason this idea hit my head to do something very Nick Diaz at someone when we were dancing. So the dance floor, everyone's on the dance floor, everyone's dancing, and then this song comes on, and this is exactly how I went. Hold on. Can you hear it? I was like this. I come running up going, I put my hands up, and I go forward at people like this, put my hands up, and going, what, my hands up, and then at the camera, sorry, oh my god, I'm so silly. Anyways, I wanted to talk about Nick Diaz and Alistair Overeem, and yeah, by the way, I did yell Stockton motherfucker, but I'm not from Stockton, so I yelled Edmonton motherfucker. Anyways, catch my breath, I'm winded, which is kind of disturbing. Anyways, Nick Diaz and Alistair Overeem were both coming back next year from their suspensions. Now, I believe Nick Diaz returns in May, and I believe, ends in May, and I believe Alistair Overeem's ends in January, I think. Oh, that's when he can reapply for a license. So I was thinking about it quite a bit, and I was talking about it with somebody, and we were having this discussion, so I'll kind of bring it forth here. So they're both returning from their suspensions next year, which is a good thing for the UFC. Two guys with a lot of potential star power. And let's talk about them individually and at the same time. Alistair Overeem's case is a lot more interesting in the fact that he has a title shot on the table. He has a title fight that he never got to have due to his suspension. The testosterone thing, and we won't get too much into that. And one of the debates and one of the interesting things that we had in this discussion was, should Alistair Overeem, when he returns from suspension, have an immediate title fight, i.e. fight the winner of Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos, or should he have to fight a fight and then fight for the title? And it was a very interesting back and forth discussion, and in my opinion, there's two ways of looking at it. Because of the suspension and the problems that it caused, a lot of people are on the fence on him getting a shot right away when he comes back. A lot of people feel that Alistair Overeem should fight one more fight, then fight for the title again. And in a way, I can see their point. He can't, it's like basically saying he can't be rewarded right away. He needs to kind of make up that ground. And I think there's a risk, after what happened with the testing, he needs to have, and this was the argument my friend made, he needs to have one fight, kind of prove that it's not going to come up as, unclean, and then fight for the title. Because there's always a risk that they promote another title fight, put lots of money into it, and then something like that happens, and that could be a real problem for them. And Alistair Overeem is a big money fight. I can't think of it right. Alistair Overeem has the potential to be a big draw, and one of the things I always felt at the suspension was Alistair Overeem and the UFC, they had the potential now to have an undisputed pure heavyweight champion. They had the K1 Grand Prix winner, Strikeforce heavyweight champion, the Dream heavyweight champion. He just came off a great victory for Brock Lesnar. He's fighting Junior Dos Santos, and if he won, that really would have, in my opinion, skyrocketed Alistair Overeem and really would have helped turn the UFC's fortunes around and maybe give them even more momentum this year. Do I think he should get a shot? The argument for him getting a shot is he was owed a shot. He fought in the number one contenders fight. He beat Brock Lesnar. He was in the mix anyways, and he should just have that fight. And I think from a money drawing perspective, he probably could get that fight immediately. If Junior Dos Santos wins, I could see him fighting Junior Dos Santos, and I talked about it in an earlier video. I could see him fighting Junior Dos Santos. There's already a bit of an angle there now that you can sell. There's been words said between the two of them. It's a very sellable fight. You got two heavyweights that like to strike. I mean, it's very, very like reminiscent of 90s heavyweight boxing for me for some reason. So let me know what you think of that. Does Overeem get a shot right away, or should he fight someone else? Perhaps maybe fighting the winner of Nelson and Carwin before he fights for the title. Now the other one was Nick Diaz, and if I compare the two situations, in a way I kind of don't feel sympathetic for Nick Diaz in a way, because listen, you have your opinions on marijuana, but the fact is at the moment it's a banned substance. You can't have it in your system when you're being tested, before a fight and during a fight or whatever have you. Fuck, I can't even say it right. The fact is it's a banned substance. But in a way he kind of was. I mean, I did feel sorry for him in the proceedings. If you've actually seen it, I did feel sympathetic for him. And I don't think his conduct was as bad as Alistair Overeem's, because if you do your research and you read about the case, Alistair Overeem tried to flee the building when he was told there was testing, and Keith Kaiser had to call to get him back in the building. And I'm surprised Overeem got 9 months and didn't actually get a year for just doing that in particular. Anyways, Diaz's suspension is for a year, I believe. Or I could be wrong. Anyways, his suspension is a lot longer. Some people feel that that's not right and feel that he should appeal against that, and allegedly he's going to appeal against that. But when he eventually comes back, we know he's coming back. He's not retiring as he said he was going to. Hopefully in the interim he's actually, bought a house, because he kept complaining that he doesn't have enough time to buy a house and all of that. Anyways, Nick Diaz. What happens with Nick Diaz when he returns? Now, Nick Diaz fans are very, very passionate. And you say one thing that they don't like, they'll come after you. And I know that when I did a video a year ago. And just to stress, I am a Nick Diaz fan, but I think he's his own worst enemy. So, who does Nick Diaz fight? Where does he go? Now, does he fight for the title right away? He's coming off a loss. However, he was supposed to have a rematch with Carlos Condit, but that suspension happened. And you kind of do have a slightly similar situation in the fact that there was a rematch for the interim title for Diaz, like there was basically 2 title fights that were blown. Nick Diaz, in my opinion, what should happen with him? Apparently he's calling out all sorts of names. He called out Anderson Silva, and I would love to see that. And I actually tell you what, I don't think that would be as one-sided as you think. I think Nick Diaz would give him a tough time, actually. I think he'd get under his skin. I think he'd get in his head. Nick Diaz, what do they do with him? He should be, in my opinion, and he is considered a top welterweight. I think he's top 3, top 2 in the world, in my opinion. But what happens with him? He doesn't get an immediate title fight. I can see that being the case. Who do they put him in there against? There's a lot of interesting fights for his return. Thiago Alves would be one. That would be a great stand-up fight, and a guy I think Nick would beat. Another one would be Jake Ellenberger, and I would bet the house that Nick Diaz wins that fight. Ellenberger is a good fighter. He's a good wrestler with knockout power and vicious knees, but Diaz's cardio would just come into full effect here. And Ellenberger does have cardio issues, and I could see Diaz exploiting that and beating him. Sorry, I didn't want to share that. The other one would be, and this is just in my opinion, and this would help build up a potential fight later on, but everyone wants to see the end game be Nick Diaz versus George St. Pierre. That's if Nick beats Carlos Condit, and that's a big if. So if GSP beats Carlos Condit, I know a lot of people will say, well, do Diaz and George St. Pierre, but Nick would need to come off a win. So it would be a very interesting thing if Rory McDonald beats BJ Penn, and I know that they're grooming Rory McDonald to be the next big thing, the next big star at 170, the next George St. Pierre, the John Jones of welterweight. What would it be to see Nick Diaz versus Rory McDonald, semi-main event, number 1 contenders fight, winner fights George St. Pierre? I think that would be tremendous to watch. And I know that the UFC sees a lot in Rory McDonald, and they want him to be the next big thing. Look, they're having him fight BJ Penn for a reason on the Fox show at the end of the year. They want him to really be elevated and elevate his profile. So if he does beat BJ Penn, and that's an if too, why not have Rory McDonald versus Nick Diaz? You've also got the storyline that if Nick Diaz beats Rory McDonald, he's beaten George St. Pierre's protege. He's beaten... You've got that story, and that's going to make the fight more marketable. And now, instead of just having this big super fight, champion versus champion, Strikeforce versus UFC, you've now got this really big grudge match, and it became a grudge match anyways. But now you've really just escalated the heat because he beat his protege, and now George comes in for revenge, and that's the story you could go with. Anyways, that's the pro wrestler in me talking. Right, I'm going to stop. I'm getting cotton mouth whenever I do videos. You write your comments. You let me know what you think. And should Overeem fight for the title right away? What happens with Nick Diaz when he returns? Who does he fight? Does he go up at middleweight and fight? Let me know what you think. Write some comments. I'm going to have my tea and then get out of here. Take care and peace out.